Recently, I've been on a Pokemon kick. I have been watching a lot of Pokemon Let's Plays, playing a ton of Smash with my boys Greninja and Lucario, and I've been playing Let's Go Eevee on and off. Because of this, I've also been fascinated by things like the old Pokemon trading card game on the Game Boy, and it got me thinking, how much has the game changed since the Game Boy port in 1999? Has it advanced enough to be different than the original release? That's what I decided to plunge into the TCG and see if it's worth getting back to after 20 years. I went into this deep dive with 3 questions to answer. How easy is it to start playing? This includes buying cards and learning the rules. How has the game changed? Has the mechanics evolved to be more dynamic? How hard is it to go from a casual setting to a tournament play? And what's the cost of entry from casual to competitive? And finally, will I continue to play this game after the deep dive? First thing I wanted to do is hunt down some cards. I wanted to focus on collecting cards from the most recent sets. These sets I'm going to refer to as Standard, and feature cards from the Sun and Moon series, Shining Legends, and strangely the 2017 McDonald's promos. Go figure. This was the first strange thing I came across. They based all the sets on one large subseries that is labeled with a recent game title. In most games, each set that comes out is its own entity and can rotate out based on age. In this format, it looks like it's based on a large chunk based on series at a time. Now, I could be wrong, but this is what I've gathered from the main Pokemon trading card game website. I decided to purchase 4 starter decks from my local Target, totaling about $60, including some additional booster packs I felt like would be fun to open. In all, I hoped that I could get a sampling of different mechanics and different types based on the booster packs and decks that I got. I got this one here. This one is Forbidden Light's Tropical Takedown. This is Prism's Imperial Command. Blazing Volcano from Shining Lost Thunder. And finally, in Lost Thunder, Stormcaller. So, most recent decks, each one plays a little bit differently, and I got a good sense of how they played. I decided to record myself opening the decks, reading the rules and handouts inside, and give my first impression. So I just finished opening up these 4 decks. The main goal was I did a little bit of research going into this before I went to the store and picked them up. I know that these are from the current set Lost Thunder, and I think these are from fairly recent sets as well. So if anything, these are, oh god, this was a bad idea to do this. These are standard legal. I believe these are also standard legal. So I'm playing in what is the most modern format. And the first impressions I have is starter decks come with a lot of one-off cards, and sometimes the packaging lies to me. This is labeled as a solo plant deck, and you can kind of see on the side of this box right here, it just says solo plant. But this deck has grass energy, dark energy, fighting energy, psychic energy, water energy, and it has a whole slew of stuff that isn't just grass type. But on the other hand, you've got something like this one with Empoleon, which is 100% water. It's 100% water type, which is really odd. And then I was going into it, well, like, I'm not getting any consistency. Maybe it's to do with how to play the decks. And in most cases, these starter decks, when you play a card game and you buy one of these special packs, and that probably sounded really weird, you get like pamphlets and stuff telling you about how to play the deck. No. What's really weird is these two didn't have, I'll put them down like that, these two didn't have any sort of instructions on how to play the deck. I got a sheet talking about the entire set, and then on the back you get kind of like what are Prism cards and kind of like special mechanics that are newer to the Pokemon game, as well as some playmats and a generic rulebook. And so I'm like, okay, that's really weird. I guess they just don't do that. Pokemon is simple enough where, you know, you should be able to figure it out over your own. But that's not true, because in only in the Entei pack, mind you, I got instructions on how to play the deck. And I want to read you the one for the theme deck, Blazing Volcano. Oh my god, there's so much crap over here. Entei, the Blazing Volcano. Both Entei's attacks are useful depending on the situation. Fire Fang can be helpful. So it's let me read the whole thing first. Fire Fang can be useful early on, doing 20 damage and leaving your opponent's active Pokemon burn for 2 energy. But Empyrean is the intimidating attack for 3 energy. It does 80 damage with both players. Must discard the top energy. So it's essentially reading off what the card does. And then it says, powering up Entei can be a slow process, so that's why we have these other Pokemon in the deck to fill things up, and then it explains what other 2 Pokemon are in the deck as support. And then it also talks about some of the trainers, and at the bottom, both sides of this, for each, mind you, like I bought one and it has the info on both, and it says, trainers can also be important in finding cards that you need. Cards that allow you to draw additional cards and search your deck for specific cards to make it easy to execute your strategy and move closer to win. What? Strategy? Wow, I just tucked that right into my dishwasher. Whoops. It's talking about a strategy. I don't know what kind of strategy it's talking about because the game doesn't explain it to you. So I'm sitting here looking at a deck like this where it has 4 different energy to it, and it's not telling it doesn't explain what it's building up to, and it's not really obvious. If I do another sort through, it's like, all right, so I have is low on Executor my final, you know, kind of like punch. Am I going for something, or do I want, you know, I can see there's some combos and stuff going on here. I know Rattatas are going to be for quick damage. You got Raticates for, you know, kind of like tanks because they have such high health. Sandslashes, Sandshrews, Cubones, Marowaks, like, there's a lot of variety in this deck, don't get me wrong, but it's weird that they're promoting this as a mono plant deck when there's so much, like, look at that. That is so much different. That's more than the double colors. This one actually is promoted as a green or a plant fire type, but there's only like 2 Pokemon that are actually plants, so I could see this being like promoted as a red, but that, like, it's so weird. And then I'm looking at like the cards and stuff, and there's a lot of like basic trainer cards that are just common between all of these. There's Timer Balls, Pokeballs, a couple of, I think, Gym Leaders. What are their names? Professor Kukui is one of them that is in every deck, and then you have Lily, you got Nest Balls, How, and I know that's they're because they're from the certain current sets and stuff, but it's just fascinating that like they give you like a couple of cards, but they don't explain what exactly you're supposed to like look for and target, opposed to something like if you get a Magic deck, you'll get the piece of paper and it will talk about the cards in the deck, and it's just like what a basic grasp of what you want to be doing is you want to get your Planeswalker out, you want a Protector, do some damage with this, or use these spells to draw cards. Like, I can sit here and I can analyze these decks, but it's just, as someone who doesn't know how to play the game, I'm going to be sitting there and I could be totally missing the purpose of the deck, and I could be failing over and over and over again until I've learned what I'm supposed to be doing, because it's just one of those things. And Pokemon, I've noticed, is a game where it's not about what's active, it's about what the deck is built to do. So if you're going into a Pokemon game and you don't know what you're supposed to be searching for, what your trainer cards are supposed to be like targeting, it's a lot of, I don't want to say back-end play, it's a lot of deck building and having your main trainer cards and your side Pokemon assist in what's supposed to be in your front line. So you would have to get your Execute up front, or having a Pokemon that would be taking the brunt of the damage, sacrificing that and allowing another Pokemon in the bench to actually like build up until you can have like the mainstay, or the Pokemon that you really can start dealing damage and taking out your opponent's Pokemon. And it's so weird because even the boxes are just inconsistent. I don't know. Yeah, like these 3 are fine, and then you have this one that's just totally dead. It's so weird. The only thing consistent is the coins. The coins are the best part of this. Look how pretty they are. But it's so... it hurts my brain. I'm going to do some more research on this, but first impressions is the inconsistency in packaging. Oh, and I've been trying so hard to keep these nice so I can keep them in a collectible kind of state. So, you know, to show off or have something on the wall in case I never want to play again. I was only able... This is the best I could do. And I tried to use my knife, and it just... Look at that. I did a horrible job. Yeah, it's... I don't know. I'm going to start digging in, reading the rules, going to sandbox a bit with these decks, and then take some notes and analyze. And then the following step is going to be studying professionals and see how they deck build in comparison to this, and see if what I analyze from like how to play the game is different than a professional player who's been playing it for a very long time. So that's where I'm most fascinated to see where this goes. So for right now, I'm gonna just check these decks out on my own. Might play some games with Ashley, and go from there. I had time to soak up the information I learned from the original box opening, and I feel that there are some things that this game can improve on in that area. Firstly, the packaging is very misleading. If you don't know what you're looking for and basing it entirely off the symbols and the flashy appearances, you can get a deck that you're totally not prepared for. Also, I feel that there should be a better breakdown of what your deck is trying to do to win the game. There are a lot of decks that are very complicated, like one of the decks in this stack, that unless you're really good at the game, you wouldn't understand what to do in the first place. Next thing I had to do after opening everything up was actually play the decks. Due to the fact that I'm a night owl and everybody I know is asleep at that time, I did a lot of fishbowling on camera just to kind of get a feel for the mechanics and the rhythm of the game. Out of the 4 decks I have, my favorite is definitely the Executor deck with the Lorne Executor. It feels the most mechanically interesting, requiring you to draw and discard useless energy to power up your Executor so we can one-shot almost any Pokemon on the field. My least favorite is most likely going to be the Ultra Prison Emporion deck. It felt the most bland out of the 4 I picked up. There wasn't really any strategy other than involve your Pokemon and place energy on it. A few days after the fishbowling, I was able to play some real matches with my girlfriend, and this is where I found my first interesting result of this whole experiment. My girlfriend, who really doesn't like playing trading card games too often, enjoys this game immensely. I have been trying to teach her games like Magic and Keyforge and Dice Masters with on and off success. Nothing really has catch her attention. But a couple of times throughout the week, she's bumped me and she's like, hey, can we play a couple of games? I'm really craving to play some more Pokemon, which is really fascinating to me, and I'm kind of glad that we can start playing a game like this together that she enjoys and I can pick up on and we can play together. We played about 3 matches each, and I came across what makes this game interesting. A majority of the strategy comes from the deck building and not by the turn-to-turn gameplay. You want to build your deck around specific Pokemon and powers, or attacks, and supplement them with other trainer cards, support cards, or other Pokemon. A well-made deck can potentially outplay Pokemon decks without a coherent theme. Now, there is strategy on how you play the deck, and there is a ton of variation on how the deck will react based on your opponent. But I confirmed this theory when I started watching the Pokemon TCG Grand Finals from this year, and I studied their deck lists. Each deck has 2 to 3 heavy-hitting GX Pokemon with basic Pokemon and trainer cards to allow you to quickly draw in them from your deck. These decks also have ways to interact with the discard pile or prize pool to prevent your opponent's interference. It's quite fascinating, to be honest. I'm not the strongest constructed player in games. I enjoy sealed decks in Magic and Hearthstone and a lot of drafting, but seeing the synergy that is placed in each deck is mind-boggling to me, and I don't think I can pull off building a deck at that level. I have to say, going into this, I was expecting this to be a quick video of me talking about how boring the game is, but I'm glad to say that I was 100% wrong. The Pokemon trading card game has lasted 21 years for a good reason. The mechanics are solid, the gameplay is varied, and there are many ways to build a deck that is fun and interesting. Not to mention the art and the designs of the card have evolved greatly to new heights over the years. Now let's go back to the 3 questions I had at the start of this video. Starting with the learning of the game, I feel picking up this game from the store was the most difficult part of this whole adventure. All of the sets, booster packs, GX boxes, starter decks, and promotional packs, it makes it hard to find out where a good starting place is. Once I found the starter decks and understood what is inside of each box, you'll have an easy time figuring it out. But, unfortunately, I had to do a lot of external research before going to buy my starters to even understand what I'm looking for. Besides that, I give this a solid pass. Going into the game, I figured Pokemon is not made enough change to stay interesting, but after playing, I was mistaken. Balance and card design have become stronger, and the new GX mechanics is a great step in gameplay. I have not seen all of the new changes, but from what I've played, I have gotten better over time. Unfortunately, the weakness to this game comes down to the card strength being locked behind rarity. For casuals who just want to play and buy a starter deck and fiddle around with friends, this is not a big issue. But if you want to be competitive at any form, you have to spend a lot of money to get most rares and secret rares needed to be relevant in the decks. Top tier decks run from $100 to $200 on the secondary market. This is not uncommon for trading card games, but it feels like it's harder to hit this game than it would be for Magic, as a lot of major Pokemon are in hundreds of dollars on their own. But if you're willing to shell out the money on a secondary market, you'll be competitive very easily. I give this one a hesitant pass. Be very cautious if you're looking into being competitive. Finally, will I continue to invest time and money into the Pokemon trading card game? Short answer, yes. But I will only be playing in a casual format with friends and my girlfriend, Ashley. I do not feel that this area I live in has a competitive Pokemon scene, and even if Colorado is a hotspot for the game, I don't feel like I would enjoy it at that level. It's a fun game for killing time with friends, and collecting has its own rewards to it, and the thrill of opening things like a GX or a Shiny or a Rare does have a very rewarding thing that I don't get in other card games. But the problem is, I think the gameplay aspect of it is a little too heavy-sided in one way or another. There isn't a middle ground for those who just want a casual, fun experience in competitive play. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. I really love deep diving into this, and I feel like this would be a great series to dig into other sorts of card games, or board games, or even video games, if you guys are interested in watching. If you have a suggestion on what I should cover next, feel free to leave it in the message down below, or message me directly. I'm always open to reply to you. I have been Campter from Lost Forge Tabletop Gaming. This has been the Pokemon trading card game, and hopefully, I'll see you on my next adventure. See you then.